Are you a caffeine addict? I'm going to teach you today exactly how to use caffeine in pre-workouts to optimize your results in the gym. Far too many people rely on caffeine to do everything, from getting up in the morning to plowing through their workout. But there's a specific way that you should be using it, and I'm going to show you the formula today. So before we cover how to use caffeine in pre-workouts, first things first is we have to discuss the goal of this. The goal of this and the reason behind all of this is we want to get maximum results. We want to try to get as maximum results as we can from every workout that we do. But in order to do that, we need the least amount of caffeine to do that, or pre-workout or whatever. The least effective dose. Tylenol can cure a headache, or it can kill you depending on how much you take. So we need to do the same thing when it comes to caffeine. Too much caffeine is not good. It impairs your sleep. It makes you nervous, gives you increased anxiety. So it's not good to be taking too much caffeine. And if you're not sleeping enough, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So that's the goal of this, right? So let's also define some other things. So the optimal dose. What is the optimal dose of caffeine? Now, again, these numbers are going to depend on the person. Every person is extremely different. But in a total for the day, you want to be consuming around 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. Anything more than that, and it's detrimental. And again, every person is different. If I took 300 milligrams of caffeine in a day, I would be wired because I've just trained myself to be reliant on as little caffeine as possible. Because you can actually train yourself to become reliant on more caffeine to get things done. And more is not always better, as we stated earlier. So in a total, in your pre-workout time, in that time frame of your pre-workout, you want to take around 100 to 200 milligrams max. There's people who take way more than that, but the diminishing returns that you'll get on anything higher than that is negotiable. It's like they're non-existent almost at that point. You're going to get the same amount of effect from taking 100 to 200 milligrams as you would from taking 300 to 400. It's not like if you double the dose of caffeine or your pre-workout, you're going to get double the results. It doesn't work like that. So now let's define how much of it is actually in one thing. So when I say pre-workout, I'm talking about a scoop, and it's anywhere between 100 to 150 milligrams of caffeine per serving. Again, depends on the pre-workout, but as a general rule, that's where we're at. And coffee counts as well, guys. Coffee is caffeine. In an 8-ounce cup of coffee is typically around 100 milligrams. Now think about it. Some people have 3 cups of coffee before they even leave the house. That's even, forget pre-workout. That's enough to fuel the whole rest of the day. So that's the ranges, and this is what you want to optimize for. Again, if you find yourself taking way more than that, then this video is perfect for you. So the way we do this is we have to get our bodies used to getting more out of less. So what we're going to do is week 1 is always going to be 0 milligrams of caffeine. That's right. You're going to go on a caffeine fast for the first week. It sounds brutal. It is initially. But we have to down-regulate our receptors to caffeine. We have to make them sensitive to it again. And the only way to do that is by stopping it completely. The first 3 days are the worst. You're going to get headaches because you're so reliant on caffeine to do things that it's going to hurt. But it's going to be well worth it in the long haul. And one more thing, I cycle through all these 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, I kind of cycle through it. So I'll take a 6-week, so I'll use caffeine for basically 5 weeks or so, and then I'll stop taking it. I'll come off of it for 1 week. And again, this just resynthesizes my body to get used to caffeine. Now, week 2, and again, this whole time, you're still working out, you're still training. You may want to coincide this 0 milligrams of caffeine week with a deload week or a lighter week where you're kind of going in and focusing on your form. So now, week 2, and we'll talk about this in milligrams and scoops or whatever, but week 2, you want 50 milligrams of caffeine before your workout. It doesn't sound like much, but again, we're getting our body used to it again. So 50 milligrams of caffeine, or depending on your pre-workout, or half a scoop. And again, this is just pre-workout. You can have a little bit more during the day, but you don't want to be having a lot. So I would say a max here of total for the day, around 100 milligrams. So that's a cup of coffee, right? That's a cup of coffee. And again, think about where you're currently at and now compare it to that. And again, the reason for this is you want that boost, but you don't want it to be too much. When I was competing in powerlifting and a high level lifter, I would, before some lifts, I would take a lot of pre-workout to try to amp myself up. But what I started to notice as I started getting better at the sport was when I would take too much, it would actually make me not be able to focus on the lift. And this happens to people on a normal basis who take that much pre-workout. So that's the second week. Half a scoop or 50 milligrams of caffeine before workout and a max total for the day of 100. So if you normally have a couple cups of coffee, but at this point, remember, the week before you had 0. So this is a significant amount of jump between this. But again, now we're getting our bodies used to relying on this little amount. You have to stick to this. So 100 milligrams total, maybe 1 cup of coffee, split it in half. Don't have a full cup. Get through it. Maybe have protein powder instead of the coffee or mix it and, figure that out. Now, week 3, this is where we get a little bit, you could either do one of two things. You could double this and have the same amount, or you could bump it up from here. So I would recommend staying at the same amount. So we're going to stay 50 milligrams caffeine. Again, just for ease of simplicity, this is about half a scoop of pre-workout or half a cup of coffee, and 100 total for the day, daily. Again, now at this point though, you should start to actually feel like your natural energy coming back. Almost in a sense like, I don't really need the caffeine anymore. I'm not reliant on it. And that's the purpose of doing this, is to shut it down to 0. Now, week 3, we're at 50 milligrams and 100 milligrams daily. Week 4 and 5, you're going to bump this up again. So you're going to hit that max threshold, which is going to be 100 milligrams pre-workout. And we'll give it around 200 milligrams total for the day. Again, you could play with these numbers and figure it out, but the point is you want to kind of cycle back between. Now, week 6 is going to be an optional week where you can either go 0 or do another week here. So we're going to go another week here. 100 milligrams pre, 200 total. And that's it. That's the formula for getting the most out of your pre-workout. Again, you need to cycle it because caffeine is an aid. And any performance-enhancing substance, you need to be able to cycle through it so you don't get used to it. Again, you don't want to be reliant on caffeine to get out of bed in the morning. Oh, how many times I hear from people, oh, I need 2 cups of coffee before I even leave the house. That's really bad. That means you're reliant on that caffeine. And once you start cycling through this a couple of times, on the 0 milligrams of caffeine weeks, and I'm talking about 0, I don't even have Diet Coke or anything that has any bit of caffeine in it at all those weeks. Like I said, the first couple of days are a little bit brutal because you've bumped it up here. But now when you take it down here, you'll start to notice toward like the end of the week, you're getting a lot more energy. Like, wow, I can actually work out without it. So this is the formula. We're going to train our bodies to get the most amount of results out of the least amount of caffeine as possible. You'll also start to notice an improvement in your sleep. When you sleep better, the quality of your results are better. You'll lose fat easier. You'll gain muscle easier. You'll change the way your body looks easier. You'll be healthier. So that is the goal here. So if you're taking pre-workout or you're using caffeine to help you get results, this is the formula you need to be following. Don't listen to any other thing. Even like the label on it will say sometimes start with half a scoop and assess tolerance. But you always want to go through this cycling process of it. And you might have to tweak this. Sometimes I'll do this for 4 weeks and then I'll cycle through. Sometimes I'll do it for 6, depending on the training that I'm doing. But again, you always want to be cycling through caffeine. This is Anthony, AB Fitness, and I'll catch you on the next one.